put a post on Twitter the other day asking if anybody dislikes Final Fantasy VIII, and if so, can they tell me why? I did not expect the response I got. Over 27,000 views on the post, a load of replies pretty much almost immediately, giving me so many reasons why Final Fantasy VIII is so hated. I was really shocked. This was a game I loved as a kid and played it more than Final Fantasy VII back in the day, so I didn't really see any flaws with it. Well, maybe until now. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss why people seem to dislike Final Fantasy VIII, and in doing so, is it going to change my opinion on the game? We'll see. Before I get to that, don't forget to like and subscribe, because over 90% of the people that watch my channel are not subscribed, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and support your smaller content creators like me. Leave a comment down below, follow along, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these points that I'm listing in the video today. Let's go. So before we get to what exactly people don't like about this game, let's break down Final Fantasy VIII to give some context. Final Fantasy VIII was the second mainline Final Fantasy game developed for the PlayStation after the immensely successful Final Fantasy VII. With this transition to 3D on the PlayStation, it allowed for more detailed graphics and larger, more immersive worlds. I mean, do you guys remember the intro cutscenes? I can't even count the amount of times that I replayed those. They were stunning then and even still now. The game was directed by Yoshinori Kitase, who had previously directed Final Fantasy VII, and written by Kazushige Nojima. Final Fantasy VIII marked a departure from the traditional fantasy settings of previous games, maybe, a little bit aside from 7, opting for a more modern and futuristic setting with elements of magic and technology. Tetsuya Nomura created a cast of characters with distinct personalities and designs, and these characters were designed to be more realistically proportioned compared to previous entries in the series, like the polygonal look of Final Fantasy VII and the pixelated look of games before that. Final Fantasy VIII received generally positive reviews on its release, although opinions on story and gameplay mechanics varied between players and critics. It was praised for its graphics, music, and ambitious storytelling, but criticized for the complex Junction System and a perceived departure from traditional Final Fantasy elements. But now it seems that over time people have really started to turn against this game. Is that true? Or have people always just not liked it? To quickly summarize the story, you follow the journey of Squall as he navigates a world filled with political intrigue and personal discovery. Alongside his friends and fellow students at Balam Garden, a prestigious military academy, Squall becomes embroiled in a conflict against a powerful sorceress named Adea, who is being manipulated by an even greater threat from the future. As the story unfolds, Squall discovers his connection to a group of warriors from the past, including Laguna Loire, as he unravels the truth about his own identity and destiny. Along the way, he forms deep connections and bonds with his companions, including the spirited Rinoa. The narrative is characterized by its themes of love, friendship, and the struggle between fate and free will. As Squall and his friends journey across the world, facing formidable enemies and uncovering dark secrets, they ultimately come together to confront a cosmic threat that endangers the very fabric of reality. Now, like I said, I really loved this game growing up, and to me, this was a really complete experience. I always really enjoyed the world, the characters, the gameplay, the music, everything. I just loved this game so much. So from here, I'm going to point out the things that people didn't like about Final Fantasy VIII, starting with the Junction System. Instead of using traditional character progression systems like experience points and leveling up, Final Fantasy VIII employs the Junction System, which allows players to customize their character's stats, abilities, and magic. Instead of purchasing or finding magic spells like in previous games, players draw magic from enemies or draw points scattered throughout the game world. Each character can hold up to 100 of each type of magic spell, and magic spells are stocked in the character's inventory and can be assigned to specific stats like strength, vitality, magic. You get the idea. By junctioning different magic spells to different stats, you can customize the character's strengths and weaknesses however you like. For example, junctioning the Cure magic to Vitality increases the character's HP, while junctioning Thunder magic to Elemental Defense reduces damage taken from lightning attacks. The Junction System in Final Fantasy VIII offers a flexible character customization experience, allowing players again to tailor their party members to suit their preferred playstyle. With that being said, with the Junction System, you're faced with a choice of either use your most powerful magics and get rid of them, or never use them in order to buff your stats. It's this constant battle of using your resources for battle or using them in battle to boost your characters. There is a little bit of a learning curve. You have to be very patient and experiment greatly. I think a lot of people really didn't like it or gel with it at the time, and maybe even so now, because it's so vastly different from every other Final Fantasy game in terms of how you actually stack your characters. Also, drawing spells can be a bit tedious tedious, and also finding draw points can be a bit tedious as well. You really have to play this game with a guide in order to know where to look for even like the most powerful of spells. Now, long before the amazing card game of Queen's Blood in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I really love, we had Triple Triad. Now, to be honest, I was never really good at it, but hey, I tried. Triple Triad is played on a 3x3 grid, with each player having 5 cards at the beginning of the game. Each card has a number value assigned to each of its 4 sides, ranging from 1 to 9, indicating its strength in that direction. Players take turns placing their cards on the grid, trying to capture their opponent's cards by placing a card adjacent to it with a higher number value on the connecting side. In addition to playing Triple Triad matches, players can collect cards by defeating opponents, winning them in card games, or finding them throughout the world. Each card represents a character, a monster, or an item, and also the rules change depending on where you go, so make sure you stay tuned with that. Like I said, I didn't play Triple Triad very much when I played this game as a kid. You know, you can play the entire game without really even touching Triple Triad. It is a missable thing, but there are reasons why you should get into it. Hold on, before we get any further, did you guys know that I have a brand new podcast called Turn Based? It comes out every Friday and it's dedicated to JRPGs, the people who make them, and the people who play them. This week I have a really interesting one dedicated to religion, myths, and legends, and other things in JRPGs. It's a really interesting listen and a really interesting watch, so hit the links down below in the description to listen on Spotify and Apple and anywhere else you listen to podcasts, and right here on YouTube for the video versions. Anyway, back to the video. Now here's the thing that really kind of bothers me now that I'm aware of it, and this was really the first time that people encountered it, and that was level scaling. In Final Fantasy VIII, enemies' levels scale dynamically based on the average level of the player characters. This means that as players level up their characters, enemies also increase in level to maintain consistent level of challenge throughout the game. The level scaling system ensures that players face enemies that are generally around the same level as the characters, keeping the game challenging without becoming too easy or too difficult. This also means that players cannot rely solely on grinding levels to overpower enemies. There's no point in grinding whatsoever in Final Fantasy VIII. Instead of focusing on leveling up, remember that Junction System I talked about? Use that to your advantage to increase stats in battles. This level scaling in conjunction with the Junction System, it adds a lot of strategy to the combat, so you must be really resourceful with your character loadouts. And leveling up doesn't directly affect enemy difficulty, it can still provide benefits like increased HP and strength. However, you can choose to grind levels if you wish to make battles slightly easier or unlock certain abilities or spells, so kind of damned if you do, kind of damned if you don't. Now let's talk about the story and some of the supposed plot holes present within it. A lot of people argue that the story of Final Fantasy VIII is very loose and up to interpretation in some ways. Is it bad writing? I don't know, you tell me. One of the most debated plot holes revolves around Squall's survival after being impaled by Edea's ice shard near the end of Disc 1. Some fans argue that the game doesn't adequately explain how Squall survives such a severe injury, while others suggest that it might be due to Rinoa's sorceress powers or other mystical factors. He wakes up on Disc 2 with no sign of injury whatsoever, and this leads us down the whole rabbit hole of is Squall dead? That whole myth has been debunked by Yoshinori Kitase in a Kotaku interview in 2017, but he did state that is a very interesting idea. So if we ever do make a remake of Final Fantasy VIII, I might go along with that story in mind. Really good food for thought. While I'm speaking of Disc 1, the general consensus seems to be that Final Fantasy VIII is a good game, but gets incredibly convoluted beyond Disc 1. I don't know if I agree. Maybe I'm blinded by nostalgia for that, but it is interesting to think, does the game go downhill from the end of Disc 1? The resolution of time compression plotline has also been criticized for its ambiguity and lack of clear explanation. At the end of the game, when you defeat Ultimecia, Squall and Rinoa find themselves in a mysterious void before eventually returning to their own time. Some players feel that the game doesn't fully explain how they escape the time loop or restore the timeline. Is it just a weird way to shoehorn a happy ending? I don't know. Some players also find it strange and maybe too coincidental that about halfway through the game, Squall and his friends discover that they grew up together in an orphanage run by Edea, who is later revealed to be the sorceress they're tasked with defeating. This revelation reshapes their understanding of their own identities and relationships. Now, this twist has often been criticized for feeling too contrived or forced, mostly because it can seem like it lacks sufficient build-up or foreshadowing and may strain believability, really almost kind of coming out of nowhere. Hence, this reflects my original bad writing question. Not saying that I personally believe that because it's been so long since I played the game, but like I said, in doing research for this, I just wanted to point that out. Memory loss is also a major point of the storyline, particularly for the main characters. The memory loss is primarily tied to the frequent summoning of guardian forces, so the more the individual uses them, the more memories you lose. The memory loss is gradual and cumulative, with the repeated use of guardian forces leading to increasing amnesia. This affects the character's ability to recall their past, including their childhood and personal histories, which of course gives credence to the mid-game orphanage twist. Because of this, the memory loss serves as a thematic device and gives the writers pretty much license to do whatever and whatever they did. Now, these are all just broad stroke negative points I found when researching this video and getting feedback on my Twitter post, because these were the most common themes that I saw in the replies. And to be honest, if anything, this actually makes me want to go back and replay Final Fantasy VIII and see where I stand on all these issues. Last I played Final Fantasy VIII might have been like 2009, so a long time ago. Do I agree with any of these negatives? Again, it's time for me to replay and find out. To me, it was what it was. I always thought Squall was cool. The Guardian forces were cool. I mean, yes, you couldn't skip the cutscenes, but I didn't mind it. The music is easily some of the best in the series. I really enjoyed the Laguna flashbacks for what they were worth. Easily the highlight of the game for me back in the day. I loved Laguna. He's so cool. It's best, honestly, to not compare Final Fantasy VIII to anything else. But that being said, would it be so hated if it wasn't called Final Fantasy VIII? Or if this game wasn't associated with Final Fantasy, would it even be remembered? Just in thought. You tell me. So there you have it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you agree with any of these points. Hit the video here for more content. And don't forget to check out my turn-based podcast in the description below. See you next time.